Well, good morning, great souls. It's wonderful to see everyone here. My name is Nayaswami Kabir, and this is Nayaswami Bhajana, for those who don't know us. And I would love to welcome especially guests and Indians, our Indian family and friends that have come all the way across. It's wonderful to have you here. It's our blessing to have you. You know, I was thinking about this when I one time did this same thing, good morning, great souls. Afterwards, somebody came up to me and said, well, you know, everybody's a great soul. It wasn't really a compliment. And I had to laugh at like that and say, well, it wasn't meant to be a compliment, actually. It was actually a recognition that that is who we all are. We're all great souls. And now, maybe he wanted me to recognize that he's a great person. You know, he has money, or he has popularity, or he has power of some sort. I don't know what he had. I could say, well, good morning, great people. It doesn't quite do it. Or good morning, great egos. Doesn't quite fit either somehow. Good morning, great souls is exactly what we are and who we are. And it is a journey that we are taking to try to come back to that point of remembrance. You know, I've been meeting with different teenagers and about the high school and so forth. And I went to a symposium on teenagers in this area. Recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I met with a young lady who came and spent some time with me. And she was sharing during this that she's been facing depression. And that was interesting. And I have some understanding what's behind that kind of a thing. And my understanding is this, and this has to do with my talking with the other teenagers and about life and the spiritual path. The fact is that we are all compelled to come back to an understanding of who we are. It's built into us. It's in our deepest soul nature that we want to return to that understanding, that being, that presence of the soul. But it's not an easy journey. And in fact, in this world, it's extremely difficult to do. It's a juxtaposition because it's very difficult to do, and yet this is the place to do it. This is a world where we can find God through some very intense challenges. High school in this area is no small thing to go through, just anywhere in this world, but especially here. Over 3,000 students were thinking about suicide last year in this area. Now, why would that possibly be? And this girl who has the depression shared with me that she's been thinking about it too. What it is that because of that compulsion, that inner drive to be who we truly are, to recognize the soul inside of each one of us, because of that drive, we move forward. But unless we're supported, unless we're encouraged, unless we're given some doors that we can go through, if those are blocked, that tension builds up. That the desire is unfulfilled. The desire to be who we are. One might also say to be with God, to be self-realized. If they cannot do that because there is such an emphasis on the competition or in the world, on jobs, on success, on money, on wealth, or property, whatever those goals may be out there, grades for the high schoolers, test scores, all of those, while they might be good in their place, they don't necessarily help us to fulfill that need. This girl needed to have somebody say, you're a beautiful soul. You're a great soul. Let's work on that together. And in fact, this is what I did with her. Say, we'll work on this. You're going to find out more about who you really are in this experience. And it's going to be challenging, and you'll have some ups and downs, but we'll do it together. And we're going to find meaning and purpose in life. This is our path. This is the way we want to move forward. And as long as we can move step by step, even just a little bit, that part of us that is the soul that's longing to be returned to consciousness and manifestation in this life, that soul starts to sing. We start to feel the joy. We start to feel the light blossoming and growing, not only inside, but it starts to come out. It comes out and where it touches all other souls as well. Now, as I said, it's not an easy path to take. Because there's this, as you know, this veil of delusion. We have the story, The Wizard of Oz. You know that one, I would assume. And in the story, there's this wonderful little soul, this young lady, Dorothy, with her little dog, Toto, and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. I love it. I've probably watched it 30 times. Probably not recently, but growing up every year, and it was a marvelous production. And it was meaningful somehow to me, too. Not only about click your heels and go home. That's also fine. But this part that I want to share. Here's the wizard standing up, and they come up to what they think is the wizard. There's this booming voice. There's this fire and this smoke and all this dynamic, powerful energy. It's so powerful, it scares them. It's demanding of them. And it's not recognizing their needs. It's only about the power, only about that authority. And they're shaking in their boots, and they don't know what to do. And then the little dog goes over, Toto, pulls the side of the screen. The curtain pulls away. And there's this little man with all the little fixtures and all the little handles, and he's pulling things in the microphone. And he looks over, pay no attention to that little man behind the curtain, he says. He wants people to believe that who he is actually that projection of fire and smoke and power. But it's artificial. It's not real. He couldn't maintain it. Eventually it had to fall apart. Somebody had to recognize that that's not really who he is. They had to recognize it because he has to recognize that's not really who you are. We don't need to project all those things in our lives where we feel like other people will respect us, other people will bow to us or love us. In fact, that is the key. If they don't love us, at least they will pay attention to us. Everybody needs to have that sense that I truly feel love. I am loved. I love all others. And in the absence of that, we try to substitute other things like the power and the energy, the influence on other people, or to gain their respect or to gain their awe for who we are. But the curtain has to be pulled away sometime. And that's the beauty of life on this planet. Sometime along the way, whatever that image is that we have for ourselves, if it is not our true goal, it's not our true soul self, that curtain's going to be slowly pulled away. Some aspect of our image is going to start to fall apart. And when that does, often there's a little depression that goes along with it. There's a little fear that goes along with that, and anxiety. But we will rise. It is our destiny to rise. We are compelled to rise. What does that mean, to rise? We can think of it in this way, that the soul resides at the top of the mountain. And our consciousness sometimes is at a lower base on that mountain. And what we see around us is not the mountaintop. We're just looking around, a little bit of dirt around us, a little bit of activity and other annoyances that are in our lives. And we think, well, this is my life. I have to stake my claim. I have to be who I am here in this little part of the journey. But at some point, we're compelled to start to take the step up that mountain. And the key is that as soon as we start to take one step, there's a bubble of joy that comes. The key that we recognize inside when we're going in the right way is that there's a joy that starts to come through all these different tendencies and all these different thought disturbances. There's still a little taste of the joy that says, you're doing the right thing. We start to take those steps. And then, somewhere along the way, that mountain has some obstacles planned just for us. The journey must have some challenges. It's not easy to get to the top of a mountain. We need some strength. We need some determination. We need some sincere effort that drives us, that helps us to go through those obstacles and challenges. And when we do, we continue to feel that joy as soon as we're taking a step. But there will be times when our inner voice might say, go this way, and instead we go this way, and there's a little bit of a slide that we'll take. Maybe we'll fall and bung our knee up a little bit, or something happens to us that is an indication that we're not taking quite the right way in this moment. Those little painful moments are the reminders. They're very helpful, actually. You know, on Friday we had a beautiful ceremony of graduation for our K through 8 students here. It's magnificent. Some of you might have come for that. It was the most beautiful example of living wisdom that I've seen in a long time, except for last year and the year before when they did it. Marvelous. But it is a true living wisdom that these children are manifesting. For example, one little girl, I can't remember who it was, 3rd or 4th grade girl, came up and said, I used to not like to make mistakes, but now I like making mistakes. And we go, huh? And she explained, I like making mistakes because when I do, I know I'm going to learn something. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to be able to feel good about that. Mistakes are good. I mean, she was, with all sincerity, feeling that in her heart. How many of us are able to say that? We love our mistakes. You know, we avoid them like the plague. You know, we try to hide them behind us and away from our awareness as well as everybody else's. We feel shame in it. We've grown up that way, haven't we? But the devotee starts to say, you know, mistakes are part of this path. And there are going to be slips and slides along the way. It is designed that way. We're booby-trapped. You know, we're going to find those moments when no matter what we do, we're somehow going to have some challenges that are going to make us slip and slide, not necessarily fall. But certainly it's going to be a slippery slope at times. Now, I've gone through some of that too, and as we all have. And there was a time, for example, on my journey, I made some mistakes in my life, and I reaped the benefit. No, well, okay, benefit is not quite the right word. The pain of my mistakes. And basically, I can share with you, admit to you, I was feeling kind of depressed about that. It was my heart was hurting a lot. And I would walk around, you know, I'd try to keep my energy up, my enthusiasm. But there was one time that I went to see Swami off at the airport. I remember this very vividly. And I was over here, he was over there. There's a whole group of people around him. And I was sort of standing by myself a little bit. And then he walked over here and he said, yes, okay. So I came over to him and he said, Kabir, actually he said Peter. Peter, you can let go of this if you just give it to God. No, that's not exactly what he said. If you give this to God, this will be gone in a moment. That's what he said. If you give this to God, it will be gone in a moment. A moment sounded good to me. It took me 3 years to start to figure out how to give something to God. You know, pain is addicting. Somehow, it helps us to identify with, at least we have some energy, at least we have some sense of who we are. Okay, I'm not free, I'm pain. It's difficult, but pain actually becomes a little addicting, and it's very difficult to let go, especially when we feel justified in it, or whatever the reason behind the pain. There is a kind of an attachment that occurs in that pain. How do you let go? How do you give something to God? I like the idea of it being gone, or did I? Maybe I wasn't quite ready to let go of that pain. Maybe there was some teaching in it for me that I had to hold on to it for a little longer. I didn't like it, but I wasn't yet willing. But Swami's words kept going through my mind and through my heart. This can be gone in a moment when you give it to God. Give it to God. Give it to God. When I first came to Ananda, not too long after coming to Ananda, I did not know who our gurus were. I could feel something, but I didn't know who they were really. I hadn't met them inside yet. And so I remember looking up at the altar and saying, okay, Yogananda, Master, you brought me to this path. I don't know if you're my guru or not yet. That was at the beginning. I said, but at least can you do this? Can you be my best friend? Can you be my best friend? I just need somebody else to be with me on this path, and I would love for you to be my best friend. And actually, I felt an inner feeling, not a voice in this case, but yes, I'm your best friend. And I was very happy about that. And I felt that. That's something to build on in that relationship with God. Until one day, I didn't really know what was going on and how much that moment had meant to me and how it was changing me inside. I didn't recognize it until I went to a program with somebody, with a group of people at Ananda, and this person said to me, said to the group, imagine your best friend. Oh, I can do that, Yogananda. And then he said, now imagine you have to say goodbye to your best friend. So I said, okay, goodbye. Oh my gosh, I was devastated. As soon as I said goodbye to Yogananda, even not being aware of what I did, a presence left my heart. I was in agony. I cried for 3 days. I could not function. It was so painful a time, those 3 days. I was just crying over and over, God, I didn't mean it. Master, please, I did not mean to say goodbye. Now, what that taught me, now I could say at the end of 3 days, thank God, it came back again. And I could feel that presence of God and Guru inside the heart again. It was one of the most important moments of my life. That mistake that I had made led to a beautiful understanding that our job is to invite God in. Our job is to hold on to that. No matter what's going on, our job is to recognize that who we are is a child of God. That there's nothing more important in this whole life than feeling that presence inside and letting that presence be with us in every single moment. I cried for 3 days. He came back in and said, well, I don't know he said this, but I think he probably said, I hope you learned your lesson. And I did. And he knew I did too. The key, there are many ways where we can keep on growing and developing. When we have but I'll come back to the love in a moment. The very simple things that we do as devotees. Actually, when I was depressed, and I was telling you that I had to find my way to feel God's presence, and I had to generate some energy. When you have a challenge at this level, your energy needs to be higher than that challenge is. You need to generate. I needed to generate that. And if you can't, if the challenge is here and your energy is here, it will lead to depression and some difficulties. So I had to up the energy. I could not do that just with my mind. So what did I need to do? Start taking care of this body. Just put out some willpower, right diet instead of all the sugars, and exercise. Energization exercises, jogging, running. I started to do that every day. It started to get the energy moving. This is a key for rising. Energy is required. The path to God is not for lazy people. The path to God is very demanding and requires every ounce of energy that we can possibly muster and more. And we just keep rising to the occasion. We get to this level of energy, and then the challenge goes boop, 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 and we just keep on going. Because being with God is a powerful, life-changing experience. It is the most incredible energy, and it requires everything that we think and more. Everything that we can do with our bodies and with our minds. Our minds need to be turned in the right way with positive thoughts and affirmations and understanding. We read the teachings. We do service. Getting out of my thinking about myself, I focused on some service projects that were very, very beneficial because I didn't have time to think about myself and all the unfortunate things that I had done to myself. I was able to just give. And in the giving, the heart energy starts to flow. And that's a very powerful way of working too. I still didn't have enough energy yet to focus deeply in the meditation, however. I was doing meditation. We can make sure that we're still doing our daily duty of 24, 48, or 64, whatever it is, kriyas, or meditation time that we're doing. But I wasn't able to concentrate quite well enough yet because I was still so focused on myself. So I started to read more about the teachings, and I started to pray more. The prayer was the most important thing that I could do because I started to say, God, I don't think I can do this alone. I need your help. And as soon as God hears a prayer like that, he comes in. We have the free will. And God is watching and see, now when we're in trouble, when we're slipping down that slope, are we going to be trying to hold on to wealth? Are we going to be trying to hold on to fame and power? Or are we just going to crawl over and grab onto God's shirt or to his feet and say, God, I let it go. I'm with you. Just take me with you. And that's what God waits for. Where we can feel like we can let go of all these other aspects of our life. We will, if God just take us with you. I was in New York years before I came to Ananda, a year before I came to Ananda. I was working in schools. I was successful and finished college and so forth, and had income, had friends. And one morning I woke up and I hadn't heard a voice. I just woke up with the clear thought, I have to go to California. That's what it was. I was happy. I had no idea why I had to go to California. There was nothing in California that I knew about. This is before I came on the path. All I knew is that I had to go to California. Crazy. Of course, I was young. I was a little crazy anyway, but that helps sometimes. But the idea, though, is that I could hear that and feel that inside and say, okay, I don't know why you're asking me to do this. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Okay, I'll do it. If God asks anything of us, you can be sure that if we don't get in the way, he's going to help us all the way through. The grace will be there with us. God never asks anything of us except those things that will bring us closer to him and to our awakening. I came 2 weeks later, I had quit that job. I was in my little broken down Volkswagen, which I had rebuilt, and didn't have a clue if it would even make it across the country. I took spare parts of almost every part of the engine, just in case. And in fact, I needed some of them. It would just break down, and I'd take it off and put it on a different one. And then I got across the country in about 10 days, driving all the way across. Still wondering, where am I going? Why am I doing this? Hello? What is this? And I ended up in Santa Rosa. One day I went to the bookstore, and I saw a book, The Autobiography of a Yogi. I clutched it. I said, now I know why I'm in California. That changed my life. And a few months later, there's some miracles between, but a few months later, I was at Ananda Village. Everything became clear. But it takes courage to hear and to follow, to be able to accept that God will guide us. There's that saying in the purification ceremony, very powerful. It's key. Open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. Open your heart to me, God says to us. Open your heart. It's your choice. I'm asking you to open your heart. And I will enter your heart, just like Yogananda did with me, and take charge. This is the key. The key is to be able to live with God inside the heart, being able to say, God, there's nothing more important in my life. Nothing, God. Not my attachments, not my likes, dislikes, they're still there. Not my emotions, they're still there. But nothing is more important than to feel you in my heart. Those 3 years where I had to work on how do I give this to God, I finally came to that understanding through this. Because I loved God and I wanted to be with God more than that pain. And I had to choose. I love God more than anything else, including pain. We might say, of course, of course, including pain, but pain is addicting, and attachments are addicting. And so, but to be able to say, there's nothing I want more than to be with you, God. I'm willing to let go of everything. Non-attachment to anything except you. And then God says, I've been waiting a long time for this, buddy. I'm here for you. And God comes in and takes charge of our life. I can vouch for that. Doesn't mean I don't still make mistakes, and we will. But bit by bit, you start to see that little direction I took wasn't quite right not because it's painful, but because I couldn't feel God's love as much. Come back to this direction. There he is. Wonderful. I must be doing something right. And then that love starts to flow through. And that love is projected through our eyes, through our voices, through our beings, to everyone that we meet. This is the goal. In every situation, in every challenge, that presence of God still lives there. Because we've opened our hearts, and He's taken charge of our life. It doesn't mean that He's freed us up from all of our little karmas and lessons that we have to go through. He says, yes, you have to go through that. But if you remember me, my grace will carry you through. And that is the most beautiful, beautiful experience. Now, in closing, I'd like to say, our goal is to be self-realized, to find out who our soul is, to meet our soul, to be a great soul. As we all are, but to recognize that and to be able to really experience what it's like to be a great soul. Not to be this old Peter or Kabir or whoever we identify with. Somehow the curtain gets pulled away. And here we are. And we are the most beautiful souls of light you can imagine. Because we're created by God. God has done this, and there are no mistakes when God does this. Self-realization is where we are going. And yes, there's some work to it, but we're not creating that. It already exists. Here's what Yogananda said, how he defines self-realization. Self-realization is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that we are now in possession of the kingdom of God. That we don't have to ask that it comes to us. That God's omnipresence is our omnipresence. That all we have to do is to improve our knowing. We are those great souls. There are thoughts that will counter us when we want to try. So we'll make some mistakes. And we'll feel that. And then step by step, we are awakened. God says, you let me in your heart, I'm going to take charge. Here's where I want you to go. Here's what I want you to experience. Here's what I want you to know. And to be with me. God's right there all the time. The dream dissolves. The curtain is pulled away. And we are again realizing who we are. And once again I say to you, good morning, great souls.